Hey guys, welcome back to Mrs. G Sewing Space. I'm glad you are here with me today. Today we are going to learn about the Origami Bento Bag, which is a unique bag. It's not made typically the same way. Here's an you can see the pictures in my thumbnail, and I'll pop up some more pictures here on either side of my head so you can see what is actually going on in the bag. But it's a really cute little bag. I really like it, and I really liked how I made it. It's made out of 2 squares of fabric, and you can make it as big or as little as you want. And I really like it because if you find cute novelty fabric, it's super cute. And also, all you have to do is tie a knot here. Tie the knot here. There you go. And when you have it filled with stuff, it's like the perfect little sack. It's the perfect size right here, and I think it's pretty awesome. I also have a bigger bag that is made the exact same way. It's quite a bit bigger, and this would be a perfect overnight bag, and it's made the exact same way, just like this, except I did the handle, the top of the handle slightly different. So I'm going to show you how to make the bag itself, and in the 3rd video of this series. So I'm going to have this bag. I'm going to have another Origami Bento Bag tutorial after this one, and it's the same idea. It's the same kind of bag, it's just made a different way. And then the 3rd video is going to be a shorter video just on how to make this handle and the handle on the other video. So I hope you guys enjoy the video, and let's get to it. The way that we're going to do this bag is we're going to connect 2 squares of fabric. So if you have a long rectangle like this, you need 2 squares. So I'm going to take this and just pull it over here like this, right sides together, because I'm going to be sewing with my right sides together, just like this. It doesn't have to be perfectly square, but if you can get it as squared up as much as you possibly can, it'll end up working better. And this is going to end up being your lining and your outer fabric. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim like this. Okay, so I've got 1 square, and I'm going to keep it with the right sides together, and I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to fold the other side. So once again, we need 2 squares for this. Now, this bag can be any size you want it to be, as long as you have 2 squares. I don't know how big at this point. I don't know how big this bag is going to be, just because I didn't measure anything off. This is actually leftovers from another bag that I'm making, and it just happened to fit the bill for a sample here. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my squares right here, and I'm going to sew a seam here and a seam here on both of them. But I'm going to keep a gap here in the middle because I'm going to flip them inside out. So I need to leave a gap about right here in the middle of them so that I can flip everything inside out and iron it flat. So I'm going to go do that real quick. And if let's see, just real quick, we're going to take a couple of pins so that nothing shifts on us. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there you go. We have our squares. They're folded in on the bias, right sides together, so that our print is facing each other, so that we won't see that right now. So here, so here, so halfway up here, leave a space, and sew the rest of it. I'm going to go do that, and I'll be right back. So I'm just sewing a 1/4 inch, starting and stopping here at the beginning. So you want to do a back stitch. Okay, just go on through. Okay, so what I did here
was I took the triangles, I sewed up the edges, I flipped them inside out, so I still have my hole here. I haven't sewn the hole up. I flipped them inside out and I ironed them flat. Now what I did here at the points, to get a good point here, nice sharp point, I trimmed the seam allowance. So as you can see right here, you had the seam allowance, which was quite thick to come straight out, but I trimmed it to a slight point right here so that I didn't trim my stitching, but I did trim where that seam allowance was. So the less fabric there at that point would give me a pointier point. And then I used my turning tool and popped it out to make it even pointier, or as pointy as I could get it. Okay? So everything's been ironed. My points have all been turned out, so they're nice and pointy, or as pointy as I can get them. Even here at the top, all I did was take a quick snip of the tip, doop, and so it comes up kind of like at like a plateau. It comes up in a triangle, and then it flattens out at the top. So that way, when everything gets folded in, there's less fabric there to make it bulky. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch the top of my triangles, and that will also include stitching my hole closed. So when I ironed everything out, I made it all flat, and now I'm going to go back and stitch this closed by doing top stitching. So I'm just going to top stitch from one corner all the way up to the top of my triangle and down the other corner. And those are the only two sides I'm going to top stitch. And I'm going to double check and make sure that I close up the hole thoroughly so that it won't pop open anytime the bag is in use. I'm going to do that for both pieces, and I'll be right back. So now I have my edges sewn up. I'm going to go back and snip my threads wherever they may be. And I ran out of bobbin thread on this one, so I had to go back and add some bobbin thread. Let's see, I think I got, oh nope, over here. I have threads over here I need to get. Okay, so now that our two triangle pieces are done, this is how we put the bag together. So we're going to take one triangle and we're going to fold it in half, corner to corner, or sewn seam to sewn seam. We want to keep the fold here on the bottom, and we're going to fold it in half, making it as even as we can possibly get it. It may not be perfect, and that's okay, but as even as we can get it. So now I'm going to set this one aside. I'm going to bring back my other triangle, and then our small triangle, which we just folded. So our fold right here, our sewn seam to our sewn seam, and our fold right here is going to go the opposite way. So we're going to flip it over like this, and we're going to line it up as best we can. So everybody see what I'm doing? Okay, just like this. So we have our big triangle here on the bottom, we have our small triangle here on the top, just like this. So we want to lay our triangles down, and it seems kind of funky, seems kind of backwards, but this is how we're going to lay it down. So the corner should align with this corner right here. There should be one straight line going from this part to this part right here. If you need a ruler, get a ruler out to help measure it, or straighten it out at least. So we need the tip of this triangle to match up with the tip of this triangle right here. And if you need to do some finagling, do some finagling. And I'm going to pin it down just like this. And I'm going to pin here in the middle so that nothing will shift on me, so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So I have my triangle pinned to the top of the other triangle. We aligned the points of our triangles so that they're in a straight line, and the point of the triangle is supposed to go to the folded edge of each piece. So now that I've got that, what we're going to do now is I'm going to sew a seam right here. I'm going to follow the line right here, sew a seam right here. I'm going to stop with my needle in, I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to move on down this here. And then I'm going to stop. I'm going to backstitch in both places, And then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing on this side and this side. So this is the bottom of the bag. So once I made this stitching here to make a square, that's our bottom of our bag, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, now that we've got everything sewn and pins are removed, make sure I have no more pins. Okay, any thread tangles need to be trimmed up. Okay, so now that we're done, now if you did this right, you should have stopped and started, did a forward stitch and then a back stitch and then a forward stitch here on each of the middle parts right here. That would give it extra security when you finally get the bag all pulled together. So this is going to end up being a stress point, and that extra stitching there will help it not tear. So now you got to figure out what side is the best side. Which side do you like the most? And you know, because I have the same fabric, it doesn't really matter. But if you decided to do two different kinds of fabric, like you wanted to do like banana fabric here and then monkey fabric here, or if you wanted one square to be a bright green and you wanted the other square to be a soft yellow, whatever it is that floats your boat, you decide which side is the best. And honestly, it doesn't matter because this one is just monkey fabric. So what you want to do at that point, you want to put your right sides together. So whatever side you want to be on the outside of the bag, right sides go together. And then we're going to match it up as best as we can here, because once again, this isn't going to be perfect, but we're going to make it as perfect as we can. And then you're going to stitch up the side seam here and stitch up side seam here, and then the bag will be done. So the bottom of the bag also should be the corners of your squares. So that should help it make it easier to line things up and sew. Now see here, I ended up being a little short here, but I didn't end up being short here. Weird. My squares were the same. No, I take that back. One square was a little smaller, so it wasn't precisely the same. If you took the time to measure out your squares properly, then you should be able to have a perfectly matched bag. But I didn't measure out my squares. I just kind of willy-nilly cut it. But that's okay. We can do a little bit of stretching to match everything up. And we're going to pin it in place. Okay, now that I've got all that pinned up, I'm just going to do a 1/4 inch or less, just stitching here on the side, and then the bag will be done. So I'll come back when it's all done. Okay, and here we go. So here's the bag. Let me trim my stitches. Trim my stitches, trim these stitches. And here you go. So now these seams can either be tucked to the inside, or if you want to keep them on the outside, you know, whatever floats your boat. We'll just flip it inside out, so we'll tuck the seams on the inside. I don't know, I kind of like them on the outside too. So I guess it's reversible. It can be whatever it is you want it to be. And there you go. And there's the bag. So how this works is, so that's the inside of the bag, and then you just tie it up. So like this. You just tie it in a double knot. And there you go. And there's just your little bag, just like that. So let's see, let's put some stuff in it. Let me see what I've got here. Let's see, I got my pins, and I got my tailor's chalk, and I have my zoom lens. I'm going to put that in there. So you can see how it looks like all on the inside here. Now my understanding is that most of the time these little bags are used for your bento lunches, so you can pack a sandwich and an apple and a drink and whatever else. So this could be an awesome little lunch bag to throw into your backpack. I know knitters who use these to put their yarn in if they're going around and knitting or crocheting someplace. You just tie it up and tote it around just like that. How awesome is that? So it's a nice little bag. I would probably use it more as a lunch bag than anything than to tote around sewing supplies, but I really like how it looks. And then you have your holes here, so if you had crochet or knitting, you could throw your yarn in here and have it peel out just from one of those little holes. And if you wanted to, now I'm not going to do it on this one because I kind of like it the way it is. If you wanted to, you could box the corners. I like seeing the seams out. I just think it adds more interest. Now, if you had chosen a really spectacular fabric, this would just add a little bit of extra interest to your bag. But if you wanted to box your seams, all you do, and I'm not going to do it here, but I'll show you, is you'll take it and you'll fold the corner here like this, and you kind of measure up like an inch, and then just sew that triangular piece right here. You sew it right across here. Here, let's pin it up so you can see. So however long you want that seam to be, I usually do an inch. An inch is good enough for me. Then you sew along that seam right here. When you flip it out, it'll give you a corner like this, which will then allow you to stand up a little better than just having a corner poke out like that. So see, you have a corner that'll stand better than just laying flat. So when you put something in, you can see here on the inside, it's a little, you just don't have that extra space to waste anymore. And it's just a little easier. So it'll stand up on its own better with that corner done the way it is here than having a corner here if you block it off and square it out like that. So anyways, but I'm not going to do it for this one. I kind of like this one the way it is. Ow, ooh, I'm poking myself with pins. And there you go. And there you go. This is a bento origami bag. This is one way to do the bag. And in my next video, I'll show you the way that I prefer to make the bag. This is easy and simple, and it has two pieces, makes it a little sturdier, but there's another way to do this in the next video that I'll show you that I like better.
Hey guys, did you enjoy the video? Did you understand what I was trying to get at? Did you see how sturdy and nifty and cool this bag ended up being? I don't have it full of anything right now because I took all my apples out and to put them back downstairs where everybody could eat them. But I hope you were able to enjoy the video. As always, if you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. Throw some comments down below. Links are always down below for anything that I use in my videos. And if you see something that I use and you don't see a link below, let me know so I can try to find it for you. I really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me while we're going on our sewing adventures, and I will see you in the next video.